no magic. White Rabbit has left its writing on the wall. We follow like Alice and just keep diving down the...
Hey, this is Rustin with Metalholic Magazine and Mojo Radio, and on the phone with me, Joey Chicago of Egypt Central. How are you doing, brother?
Very good. How are you doing?
I am doing absolutely wonderful, keeping busy, and obviously you guys are too. You've got the tour coming up. You've got the album coming out. What else is going on in the land of Egypt Central?
Right now we're just trying to get all the final pieces together before we release the album White Rabbit May 17th. And when I say pieces, I mean that we have a comic book we're doing that goes along and coincides with the record. Some people would call it concept record. We're not doing that because it can be relatable to many life situations, but just taking it further into a story, into a metaphor for the things that we've been through over the last 4 years. So just tying those things together, a brand new video for the single White Rabbit. Should be out soon, and just some really cool stuff for the fans, new merch, obviously the new tour, like you said, with Cold, and just trying to tie in all the loose ends to get this thing ready to explode.
Thanks. Well, first off, I have to thank you guys for getting me back into hard rock and metal, our genre of music, because when grunge came out, I hid in a cave, musically speaking. And a few years ago, like 2007 or something, a friend from Tennessee turned me on to you guys and gave me the song You Make Me Sick, and I just fell in love with the album and the band. So I sort of came out of hibernation with you guys, and Metalholic Magazine was born. So for all those people out there who are addicted, all the Metalholics, it's all your fault.
Oh, that is like one of the biggest compliments we've ever received, brother. I just talking to you about everything that Metalholic Magazine does, and as I'm in here on the website, just everything that you guys are doing for our genre. It's just unbelievable to hear that we had any kind of part of the beginning of that. It's a wonderful compliment, man.
Yeah, who knew? It all led back to you.
Oh, we knew. We had stalked you down and mentally got you prepared for what you had to do. I wish.
Well, and it's been several years since that debut record sort of staked its claim in hard rock and metal. And White Rabbit, as you said, comes out in May. Why so long between records? You sort of alluded to 4 years of, sort of struggles and sort of the things that were going on. Enlighten us a little bit.
Long story short, because it is such a long story, the intricacies of how the music business has been evil to us as opposed to nice to us over the course of the last few years is a really long story, but once the first record was released and we finally were able to get it out onto shelves, Best Buy, what have you, within 8 months, and I think actually while You Make Me Sick was sitting at like 17, 18, something like that on the Active Rock charts, we had a complete falling out between our management and our label, which was just catastrophic at that time. We were in the middle of the Disturbed tour, and we didn't even have CDs to sell. And it wasn't the fault of the band. It was just, I don't know, I guess we had to learn the hard lesson that sometimes the guys that work for you have bigger egos than you do. And so just working back into figuring out what the team we wanted behind, and then knowing that we had built this underground fan base and built some really hardcore fans that were so loyal to us that we didn't want to give them, some quick, push it out, get it paid type of record. And so we actually spent about 6-7 months in a cabin about 50 miles from existence out in the middle of Arkansas, and just started to write there and really separate ourselves from, I guess, the business of the world and I guess any kind of influence that would make it commercial-based as opposed to artistically trying to create a masterpiece, which is what we always felt like we wanted to do each time we put together a body of work. And so after those months, we struggled to get the record together, and then we ended up with Fat Lady Music, who is the original label that had You Make Me Sick. And so for it to all come full circle and realize, where the wrong was and where the right was in the situation, and just to come back and feel full throttle at this point, And then getting in the studio with Skid Mills, who did Saving Abel and 12 Stones and some others. Madam Adam, I think he's also done, who just came out.
Right.
His tones and his attitude and I guess his creed of how he feels about music just matched perfectly with what we were trying to do. And so we just weren't going to put out anything that wasn't what we felt like would be the next big step, or at least to pigeonhole us as a real A-level voice in the music scene. And so we felt like we've done that, and we're very, very excited about not only White Rabbit, but the rest of the songs. And that's really just kind of the short version of why it took so long. Maybe sometime over a beer I can tell you all the things we've had to go through, from car wrecks to bloody knife fights. But
all the sort of details.
Yeah, we are the real deal. We've been through it, I promise.
Well, and talking about that, do you feel this album is sort of a continuation or extension of the first one, or do you see it as more of one that readily defines the signature or identity of the band? Because I know a lot of times bands, they come out with the first album, it's great and everything, but once they get out there, they start touring, and they really solidify themselves and go through some things. Their second record really sort of becomes their signature record.
Yes, I definitely agree, and I think that White Rabbit is us defining our styles, our influence of metal and punk, but also jazz, funk, and like jam band, and the ability to kind of mesh those together. But also, I think, that's what I love about local music and local bands and that time when a band is just starting off. And I think for the first record, a lot of it was just raw emotion. 5 guys who had taught themselves to play their instruments and didn't really know any of the background of how deep musical theory can go, and the ability to use mathematics in our music and things like that. We were still young to that and amateur to that, and so I think some of the first record is just us being as raw. That's our raw talent, and now I think we've been able to harness it as the weapon we want to use it as. And I'm just very, very proud with White Rabbit. I really think it is the next step in climbing the ladder that will be the mountain of Egypt Central. So we're really excited.
And the title cut, White Rabbit, is the first single, which hit radio last week. Great song, by the way.
Thank you.
Tell us about why you chose White Rabbit as the album title, and sort of in your words, what that song itself is about.
White Rabbit is, I guess, in a sense, an introduction and a synopsis, I guess, of what we have been through in the last 4 years and 9 years as we've been a band. And I think one of the major elements that metaphorically you can relate to is the idea of something that seems so good turning out to be so bad. And White Rabbit was really us in our youth and our innocence, thinking that the music business was one thing, and having the White Rabbit lead us down this hole, as it says in the song, and then realizing just what that world actually entails and the people and characters that you have to face. And so White Rabbit was just, it was the first song we wrote when we went into work with Skid, and so it really, really set the platform and set the bar very high for what we wanted to do with the rest of the 11 songs that we were going to put on the record. And so it became the front runner, and I think as we started to realize what would we call the record, we hinted around this idea of White Rabbit and hinted around the idea of the song which explained what we had been through so well. And instead of trying to be anything but to the point, that's exactly what we did, and just named it White Rabbit. We felt like we really wanted to draw attention to that song as a beginning point, and then open you up for really the sound of the